Welcome to the show. It looks like I chose the wrong intro because my name wasn't on there. But anyway, I'm Chad. Matt has the night off, but my guest is another great Chad, Chad
Chad's the
Hardin.
night.
That's right. Let me go ahead and bring him in, and we can. I, I don't want to say chat out, but hey, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Doing okay. Um, so before we get, definitely want to talk about your project on Zoop.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I want to find out a little bit about you, about your history as a comic reader and as a creator.
As a reader, we're gonna have to go way back,
Mm.
way back. Um, my first comic ever was Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 20, where he fought the Tony Stark of the far future of 2020. And I have a little bit of a dyslexia, so I might be
Mhm.
swapping numbers there, but that I'm pretty sure that's the book. And
Okay.
uh And then I think when I really got into it, I think my friends really got me into it. Uh, like the first book, the first back issue I remember buying was X-Men 210, and then
Okay.
I started going back. But I mean, I was like super hooked into it. So I grew up in the middle of the Satanic Panic, and uh,
Mhm.
and my mom burnt all my D&D stuff. I was always a giant nerd. Okay, obviously most people have figured that out by now, but giant nerd, and my mom burnt all my D&D manuals and all that stuff, and so that was taboo. But if we wanted
Mhm.
to do role playing games, and if it was like a Marvel's role playing game or a Robotech role playing game, that was okay because Dungeons and Dragons was the devil, and all these other role playing games were not the devil. Okay,
Yeah.
and so uh, my friend Mark Barrio Nuevo and my friend Jason Grossetti and we would go spend the night at each other's houses, and we would play Marvel Superheroes, the role playing game. And then we would turn around and we would make comics out of our role playing adventures. And we did that from the time we were 12, probably till the time we were 16.
Okay.
So, yeah, Dork
And
Central.
so when did you, I guess, decide that you wanted to do the, draw for a living?
I I was people ask me like when I started drawing. I think I started drawing when everybody started drawing. I just never gave it up.
Mhm.
And I think by the time I was like 4 years old, I started getting compliments on it. And then I just never stopped. And there was a lot of times like I would enter a lot of contests as a kid. And sometimes I had really good competition. Like my friend Jason beat me in a lot of my grade school art competitions. And but lots of times I would enter art contests and they would disqualify me because they thought, it was an older person's, or somebody was sort of gaming the system or something. But I always enjoyed drawing. But when I found comic books, it was pretty early on after finding comic books where I was like, this is what this would be my dream job, is drawing comics. X-Men Annual number 10, Arthur Adams, the X Babies. I took a look at that annual and I was like, I want to draw. I want to draw like this guy. Uh, yeah, I was pretty in at that point.
And so what did you do career-wise to kind of pursue that goal?
I had no clue for the longest time. I just sent letters to the editor. Those. Do you remember in like the back of the books? They're like, if you want to draw Marvel comics, turns out everybody I talked to said nobody ever got a job that way. And I did hear a rumor that Travis Cheris was found that way. But like, how brain dead would you have to be an editor that turned down Travis Cheris? Anyway, he, to my knowledge, he might be the only person, but um, everybody else got polite letters of rejection, and I was very old. You know, most of my friends in comics, like Ali Garza, Tyler Kirkham, they were drawing. But I think Ali started drawing when he was 16, and then Tyler started drawing when he was like 18 or 19, or super young. I didn't get
Mhm.
comics till I was 30, and it was simply because I just didn't know how. And how I finally broke in is they started doing the portfolio searches at Comic Con.
Okay.
And so I found out about the portfolio search, and they would actually, Marvel and DC both, they would basically have a panel. You had to go to the panel, you had to listen to like all the rules and sign the terms of submission, all this horse shit. And then you basically had to take your pages and submit the pages. And if you're good enough, they would post a list at the booth, at the Marvel booth or the DC booth, and your name would be on the list. And I think it was like 2004, I finally got my name on the DC list.
Okay.
So it took, but I've been trying since I was 16. So it took me like 15 years of trying before I actually figured out how to break in. And that's a long, but you got to remember, like, this is sort of pre-internet. Um, this was, I laugh at, I laugh at a lot of the bitching these kids do, because, if you have the internet, I don't know what you're complaining about. We used to have to find out the old-fashioned way. I mean, you almost had to be Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Um, but anywho, yeah, I broke in at 30. I broke in at
And
30.
what was your first, work with DC?
So my first work was Countdown to Mystery. Oh my gosh, shit. Lie. Okay, so I want to say it was like 3. Countdown to Mystery
Hmm.
3, but it might be 8. Anyway, like I
Okay.
said, dyslexia is a bitch.
Yeah.
I see a 3, but it might be a backwards 3. So anyway. Um,
Yeah.
anyway,
Obviously, it hasn't hindered you too much.
you know, well, it never affected the drawing, but
Yeah.
reading, writing, all that stuff. My math scores for like my SATs and my ACTs were fine,
Hmm.
but everything else was sort of in the toilet. What were we talking about? You got to. What was the original question? Like, oh, how I
What
how
was
I got, how I got in with DC.
Yeah.
Um, so once I got into the talent search, I had the contact information. So I would send editors at DC Comics. Uh, I just kept sending them stuff, and I think it actually took me like, so my when I submitted my portfolio and I got their cards and things like that, it still took me 2 years of sending them samples before I got a call back. But
Mhm.
I just imagine at that point they were just like, dude, if we don't give this guy a chance, he's just gonna annoy us till we die. Because I did I sent but I got a lot of people's cards. I think there were like 16 editors for DC at the show. I got 12 of their cards,
No.
and then I also got CB Sobolski's card. And unfortunately for me, like when I was sending stuff to CB, there was like a very brief moment in time where he left Marvel, and that was, so I'm sending stuff to CB, not hearing anything back. If it got to somebody, they would at least write me a letter saying, hey, we see improvement, or they're always encouraging. They were never like, go fuck off and die. They were always encouraging, but I do
Hmm.
think it was sort of a. I'm sorry, I should have asked the rating. If Can I say
No,
the
go
F
ahead.
word? Okay, all right.
Yes, you can.
Uh, Teacher mode there for a second. Anyway, long story short, Joey Cavallari finally called me up one day. He said, I have an artist on a book. He just got in a car wreck and broke his arm. I got a 6-page assignment and a 22-page assignment. Which one do you want?
Hmm.
And I said I wanted them both. He goes, well, you can't have both, but you can only have one. but here's the one. And so it was me and Lila Sturgis, I want to say, on Countdown to Mystery for DC. And then I worked for Joey for 14 years straight after that. Just me and Joey, whatever books he was on. Joey Cavallari, big, huge support for me at DC. So, yeah.
And I know a lot of your DC work involved Harley Quinn with Jimmy Palmiotti and
Yeah, that
Amanda
was later.
Conner, and
Yeah, that was
that was
later.
yeah.
It was so funny when they did the contest because I'd been drawing for DC for a very long time, and then I don't know if you remember that with like Harley Quinn #1, they sort of had the put your pencils in and maybe you,
Yeah, yeah,
and that was all part of Jimmy's evil plan. But there was a lot of people that thought that I won the contest, that I was the contest winner. I'm like, no, dude, I've been doing this for like 16 years at this point. You know what I mean? So I've been drawing comics for 16 years before, for whatever reason, Jimmy and Amanda asked me to join that book. But when they asked me to join, like I knew it was going to be special. And so I think Jimmy and Amanda knew it was going to be special. I knew it was going to be special, but our editors really didn't. We were told by our editors that we'd be canceled before issue 10 to not get attached, to basically expect work for just that little bit. And then it just completely blew up. It just, we were the first book to go into 5th printing since Walking Dead.
yeah. Harley Quinn kind of she's an up and coming character that they're
Yeah.
trying out.
Well, it you know what? Here's the thing. There have been Harley Quinn books before. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It really was Jimmy and Amanda's just like, okay, we're going to take this and we're just going to go crazy. We were the only book that I would say was a humor in the humor genre, the comedy genre of comics for DC. We were the only one cracking jokes.
Hmm.
We probably cracked more jokes than Mad Magazine. So, and I think it just hit a home run. It was just the right place, the right time, with the right character, the right, lightning in a bottle. I don't know, I feel very lucky just to be a part of it, because I do think it will be looked back upon as if Harley's still around in 50 years, it'll be a big chapter in the chapter of Harley Quinn, that reboot that we did.
Now, how did the process, working with them, or anytime you're working with a writer, how's your communication and interaction with the writer? I mean, I'm sure it varies, or it's different depending on who you're working with. But
You know, lots of times, every writer's different. But working with Jimmy and Amanda was probably, it was like being on the playground at school telling dirty jokes with. I'm serious. Like that's how it felt. Like and there's a lot of people that think Jimmy's the dirty joke writer. Amanda's the dirty joke writer, and so, but anyway, so it's like it's just this weird situation. But they would send the script over, and there'd be all these jokes in the script, and I was like, okay, how can I one up them? What can I
mhm,
what can I do to add a little bit of salt and flavor to this joke? And we would just giggle. There were times, I think Jimmy has probably a pretty regular sleep schedule, but Amanda and I had the same sleep schedule. Like it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're emailing back and forth, laughing about, the comps or whatever. But it was the best time I've ever had in comics. And because of the success of it, it was amazing, because it feels like everything else took care of itself. It was like for the first time in my life I didn't have to worry about money.
mhm.
Um, it was just like, let's just do this thing and let's have fun, and it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and we still do, but they were great times to have, for sure.
Now, I mean, kind of segueing into the Zoop project. I mean, this is the volume 4 of your, you know, work.
Yes.
Let's, tell me a little bit about the project itself.
Okay, so this is the Art of Chad Hardin Volume 4, and we had crowdfunded every volume. We did books 1 and 2 at the same time because what had happened is um, my assistant basically uh, at the time, her name was Jimmy Young, and is her name is Jimmy Young. She's still around. But she's no longer my assistant. She's doing her own stuff. But she was basically doing Kickstarters for her web comic. She had a web comic on Webtoons called Children of Elder, and she's like, you know, we go to these conventions, and Jamie Tyndall and all these guys, they're selling their sketchbooks for like all this money. You should let me do it. And I was like, knock yourself out, kiddo. And I was like, I'll give you 20%, whatever. And anyway, she did it, and it made a lot of money, a lot more than I thought. You know what I mean? And all she did was take pictures of my commissions at shows. That's it. That's all that first book was just all
Okay.
these commissions. And it was at Harley. So if you buy that volume 1, chances are it's a Harley drawing. And then we did another one after I left Harley Quinn. I was doing Jimmy and Amanda and we went on to do Wonder Woman. We did I think it was like 8 issues of Wonder Woman, and
Hmm.
we had a lot of fun on that. It did okay, but it wasn't as well received as Harley. Uh, but anyway, so the second volume was basically all the stuff I was doing, or excuse me, the third volume was because we did 1 and 2 at the same time. The third volume was all the a little bit of a little bit of both, some stuff from Marvel, but I was working on my first creator owned project then called Temerity, and so there's a
Hmm.
lot of Temerity stuff in volume 3, and then this one with volume 4, it's more creator owned stuff mixed with very recently I've started doing a lot of covers for Marvel. Been very
Hmm.
lucky. Uh, Ricky Purdon reached out to me at Comic Con. Well, I've known Ricky since he was back at DC, but he's now the talent guy over at Marvel, and I just I'd been emailing him forever, like, "Hey, let's do something, let's do something, let's do something." And then finally at Comic Con this last year, he stopped by my booth and was like, "Okay, let's really make this happen." And
Hmm.
so since Comic Con this year, I've just been doing a ton of Marvel covers, and that's been really nice. So we got the Marvel covers, a lot of Harley. I every once in a blue moon I'll still do Harley stuff for DC. So there will be some Harley stuff. There'll be definitely be Harley commissions. Um, but a lot of this book's also going to be my creator owned projects, Death Watch and Hunters. And Hunters was Jimmy and Amanda as well. Paper films. We did a
Hmm.
western. So yeah, this one's going to be if you bought the previous 3 issues, it's going to be you're going to know exactly what you're getting. You're basically getting a sampling of everything I've been working on since the last volume came out, and I haven't done a volume since COVID. Uh, a lot of stuff changed over COVID. Um,
What?
yeah, you know, no conventions for a while, and
Hmm.
all so everybody just did nothing but sit and grow their beards out. And but yeah, so this is like the first one in 3 years. So it's all the best stuff in that 3 years.
Why don't we take this opportunity to talk about your creator's own
Okay.
stuff? I mean, uh, which one do you want to talk about first?
Um, you know, Hunters was a lot of fun. Um, it was. I've been doing nothing but superhero comics my entire like even when I did the indie stuff trying to break into DC, it was still like superhero stuff. and Jimmy had done Jonah Hex forever.
Yeah.
And he was like, so what do you want to do next? And he just started listing off these genres. I was like, dude, you want to do a Western? He was like, yeah, I'll do a Western. And because I always joked to Jimmy, that my dad judges movies by whether or not, if it has John Wayne, it's an excellent movie. If it has Clint Eastwood, it's an okay movie. If it has Charles Bronson, it's a good movie. You know, and if it ain't got one of those three, chances are it sucks. So, and I thought, well, here's my chance to do a comic book that maybe my dad would read, you know.
Okay.
Um, and we actually, Jimmy and I, we tossed the story around, uh, and of course, Jimmy made it all his own, but there's still a few ideas that uh, of mine that made it through. I grew up Mormon, so there's a lot of the Mormons were very, besides like the miners, the westward migration of the European immigrants. Unless you're a minor 49er, chances are if you came west, you're a Mormon. And so there's a lot of that in that book. And visually, I think it's probably one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm really uh, I know this much. It's the best looking book I've ever done. Jimmy spared no expense when it came to printing. Uh, Gosh, it's just beautiful. And I mean, even the unless you have the cover, it's hard to appreciate. But the cover's actually embossed over the characters,
Hmm.
so it looks good. It feels good. The paper. And here's the other thing. I don't know if you noticed this too. Like the paper quality in the new comics, it sucks so bad, and the colors look like shit. So like the artists are losing their minds because like I swear, like the next step up is going to be printing it on toilet paper. I mean, it's that bad. So when like Jimmy did our book, it's like it's all pristine paper and
Hmm.
high gloss and high paperweight. And I know that the public might not give or might not notice those things, but man, I sure do.
Hmm.
And anyway, it's so much fun working with Jimmy and Amanda. I can't. If you ever get the opportunity, I highly recommend it because
Hmm.
it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun.
I've had the opportunity to speak to him a couple times, so he's a he's a great guy,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
he
He
even
is.
remembers who I was at New York City, so at
Yeah,
that con.
he's got a mind like a steel trap. Jimmy does.
Hmm.
Yeah, people might not realize that, but like like Mark Wade is someone who has almost like a Google like memory of comics.
Hmm.
Jimmy's like a secret Google. Like you don't think he knows this stuff, but he does. He he says this all the time, and I tend to believe him now. I think he reads every comic that comes through. Does he work out of like Emerald City Comics? I think he works out of a comic shop. I think he works out of
Okay.
like Emerald City Comics in Florida.
Hmm.
And I think he says he reads like every new issue that comes in. And it wouldn't shock me. He's
Yeah.
always looking for like, the cool art, the cool story that, anyway, I that's very cool to me.
Hmm.
I always thought I was the biggest comic nerd I'd ever meet. No. Uh-uh. So
And so with yeah, your other projects, Death
mm,
Watch and Temetry, are you doing the writing on that
temerity.
too?
So
Temerity?
what happened is after temerity, temerity, was actually a very good success. The only thing it wasn't enough of a success to basically support two families.
Hmm.
And but I wish my new projects that I'm doing now had that crowdfunding backing that we had on on those books. Um because you know, we put up some pretty good numbers, and I hope that everyone that does read my creator owned work realizes at this point that I'm not pulling any punches. That I'm trying to make my pages look every bit as good as the stuff that I did for DC, if not better.
Hmm.
Um, but the reality of it is independent comics are 1,000 times harder than like working for Marvel and DC. I mean, it is a well, okay, okay. You're everything. You're the
Hmm.
CEO. You're the writer. You're the editor. You're the colorist, and obviously I hired a lot of good people to do those things on Death Watch. So I don't want to take anything away from like Chuck Michael Obach or Zen or Jared, but like when it's you, when it's your name that's and you're the person publishing it, and all this stuff stops with you, you it is you. Um, Even though they're sort of like vicarious robots that you've sent out to do things, and you rely on them because they're talented. Um, you're the one juggling all the balls, and
Hmm.
it's just it's so much harder. But at the same time, there is such a thrill to like go to a show and have someone bring up the copy of your book instead of like the DC or the Marvel book. And so I think at this point, um, and don't get me wrong, I plan on doing a lot of stuff with Jimmy and Amanda at Paper Films, but Hardin Comics is basically just my stuff, and it's stuff that I own 100%.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, and sort of lessons learned from Temerity. Even though Temerity was a great success, Jim and I are still friends. It just if you do things 50-50, it's hard. It's really hard to be a creator owned project is hard enough. Um, to support two families though with an independent comic, that we would have to have been way more successful than we were.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, but like I said, I still stand by the books. I still think that if you got the artwork in them, you got a quality product. Jimma plans on continuing Temerity over at Jimmy Young Studios.
Hmm.
I plan on continuing doing Death Watch. Matter of fact, I do have pages of two. I guess I could show if
If
you
you
want.
want.
If you guys want to
Here,
see
let
a
me.
sneak peek, let me see if I can even do this. Got my iPad right here.
Whenever you're ready, I'll solo you.
Okay. Let's see.
So while you're doing that, do you work digitally? Do you work with, pen and inks and all that? Or
I
or I mean on paper?
so I learned traditionally. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Um, I learned traditionally. When I went to school, I was probably I almost double majored uh, in um in illustration and like graphic design. So I was one of the first generations to come out of college with like a knowledge of Photoshop. I tell people all the time that I remember Photoshop when they had one undo. Um, so, but for the longest time, I couldn't afford like the equipment that I have now. Like right now, I'm sitting in front of the most expensive iPad on the planet, and then we're talking on a Wacom Cintiq. You know, but if you're a poor college student, that might be sort of a hard, a steep dollar bill to get equipped that way. Uh, so it wasn't until I had money coming in, a lot of money coming in as an
Hmm.
artist, before I could even afford to work digitally. And now I've never given it up, which is one of the things I would love to talk about, the AI thing,
No,
because
sure.
I have I have a take that I don't think too many people are taking, and it's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but uh, my experience has been I'm old enough to remember when people uh, were treating airbrushes the same way that they're treating AI,
Hmm.
where like they would say things like airbrush artists aren't real artists, and because the airbrush, the machine, the airbrush did all the work. Sounds pretty stupid, right? And here's the thing. I know how the sausage is made. I know that a computer is basically reaching into a bunch of information that it has in its library. It's scanning all that information and it's regurgitating that information out in the hopes that you respond to that algorithm. Um, and I know that it was trained on people's art without their consent. Uh, I do feel like anybody whose art was used in training should be compensated. Okay. So I'm not making any stupid claims like that, where it's like, oh yeah, tough shit. If you're an artist, this is the way of the future. But it is the way of the future. There's unless someone's stupid enough to drop a nuclear bomb and we lose all of our electronics, there's no going back. There's never been a going back.
Yeah.
Okay. AI is here to stay. It's not going to go away. Um, I think artists are absolutely 100% correct in all their arguments. Like what they're feeling is a valid feeling. They are being stolen from, they are being used, they are being abused. This has been happening to artists from day one.
Hmm.
It's not something AI has created. It's just made it easier for people to do. That's all it's done. It's made it easier for people to steal your artwork. And I think that's why a lot of the recent court uh, the court cases failed, was because the artists, instead of going after the other artist, they went after the basically the people that made the sausage.
Hmm.
It's
I
the
see
whole
that.
it's the whole, do you go after the gun company or do you go after the person who shot the person? And there's some
Right.
people that are like, well, you go after the gun company too. Yeah, but you have to go at the gun company through regulation. Okay. And you're still gonna have guns. You're just gonna have different kinds of guns for different purposes. Okay. But it's not going away. AI is not going away. And um there's a lot of panic, like, so when you heard this topic, I'm sure the reason why it's a hot topic right now is because of the Spawn cover contest. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. And then the Batman artist is somebody's said that thinks that he used it in the comic book.
Oh shit! I didn't hear that one. So
Yeah.
there's a which artist?
Andrea Sorrento?
Hmm.
Sorrento?
Huh. I'll have to, never heard of him. So sorry, not trying to be a dick.
No.
I'm sure there's
I,
a
and
million people out there that
I
haven't
don't
heard
I
of him.
don't yeah, I don't know if I, am pronouncing his name right, so I could be, but yeah, I mean, it's, and I've I've looked at it and it's kind of, the person has, fingers, extra fingers or whatever, but
Mhm.
you know it's
Well,
not, I get.
let me ask you a question, because this is what I'm doing right now, because I'm totally studying it. I am learning how to do it. Just like I learned Photoshop, just like I learned Procreate, just like I learned 4 modeling programs from ZBrush to Studio Max to Maya to, okay, I've learned all that shit. Because in the 15 years I wasn't doing comics, I was doing video game marketing or video game development. It's not like I stood around for 15 years with my thumb up my butt waiting for Marvel or DC to respond. I was a working artist. I was a working illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived through the era where things went from being done traditionally to things being done digitally to things now are going to be done by AI. Okay. And my experience with that is what happens is the technology makes it faster and easier to get the result that people want. But now the computer's going to get so good, then a lot of people, there's not going to be a need at all to call an artist for anything because you could just talk to your computer and your computer's going to be able to generate that image, especially if you're an illustrator. If you're an illustrator, you're super fucked because now you're looking at your art directors are probably, they're only going to come to you if they can't get the result they want through AI anyway. And that's just the way it's going to be. Now you can look at it one or two ways. Like all of a sudden, all the annoying art jobs that you never wanted to do in the first place, like photoshopping your mom's family photo album, you don't have to worry about that shit no more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But a lot of the paying stuff, yeah, it's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And you can either bury your head in the sand or you can accept the fact that it's going to go away and you're going to have to figure out how to either adapt or live without it. And those are your choices.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your choices. And it's not that that's the way I want it to go. It's not that I feel like, like I said, I'm feeling it with people, but I just know from experience, there's just no going back. There's no going back.
Pandora's box has been opened.
Yeah, and and so I see a lot of people like freaking. I mean, I basically edited my social media down to only comic book people at this point. Like if you get on the internet and you act the fool, you're gone. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you post stupid shit, you post about politics or religion or Amway, I block you. And so I just follow comic people at this point. It's only
Mm-hmm.
comic people. And yeah, getting on this morning with the news reaction to the Spawn cover contest winner was done with AI. I mean, there were so many people that were just super disappointed. And I'm just going, first of all, Todd's old. He's rich, which means he's out of touch. And I'm not dissing Todd. I freaking love Todd. Todd's one of my heroes. Okay. So I'm not casting shade on Todd. All I'm saying is he probably didn't even judge the art in the art contest.
Yeah.
It was probably an editor that knew nothing about art that picked the winners.
Yeah.
And and I just watch like all these people like reacting in these ways and like they're and now they're they're giving Todd shit. I'm like going, you guys don't even you don't even try to have empathy. You don't even try to understand. You don't if it doesn't fit your super narrow view of how you think things should work, you automatically reject it. And I'm just like, and I've watched people do that to the point where they're just an island on their own. They're just like an annoying voice just shouting into the internet, which is
Mm-hmm.
about as efficient as pissing into the wind. What are you going to do? You can either accept your situation, or you can learn to adapt it. Like this is what I don't think people understand. Like they're like going, oh, Disney and Marvel and DC, they're going to use AI. No, they're not. They're going to be competing with 12-year-old kids for making content because now the internet has made it a completely level playing field with everybody on the planet. If you have an idea now, It's not going to take a Marvel or a DC to make it. Some kid in their basement with enough time and determination can make it, and they don't need anything. And here's the cool thing. Everybody's looking at the negatives. Nobody's looking at the positives. Every time something's come out technologically, has it made your life better or worse?
Oh, yeah, probably better.
Yeah. I mean, we're, and I get it. Change is scary. And right now, everybody's just looking at it like, I'm going to lose my job. Well, guess what? Everybody on the fucking planet's losing their job. Everybody. You think artists are the only ones it's going to replace?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's everybody. Lawyers are gone. Politicians are going to be gone. Judges are going to be gone. Hell, cops are probably going to be gone. It's going to be some algorithm. You're going to get flagged. We're entering a brand new world, and you might as well learn it. I'm learning it. I'm learning it as fast and as hard as I can. I've never published any artwork with it. Actually, I take that back. I showed my students how to use it when I taught at university. I was like, look, what do you, because it was a discussion point, hey guys, what do you think about this? Boop. Hey, here's your assignment. I just did it in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
You don't think my students need to know that shit? Of course they need to know that shit. And you know what the smart ones did? They learned it, and now they're making $250,000 as AI artists. And do you think that they give a shit that you don't like it, or somebody else some other artist doesn't like it? No, they're laughing all the way to the bank because they got a job. And you're gonna hate on them for that? No, that's life. That's it. That's how it goes. Things change, and it's hard. It's hard, but it's not going to change so fast that people are going to be in a bread line. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still people shoeing horses and making saddles, aren't there? You know what I'm saying? Like, we've had the combustion engine for 100 years now. There's still people making, horseshoes and saddles. So there's still going to be people doing artwork. There's still going to be people painting. It's just going to be another thing, So anyway, that's my 2 bits. That's my 2 bits. But if I share that with anybody, you know what I mean? Like if I got on and I was like a social justice warrior, just, on the internet, clicking, this is what Chad thinks. I'd be out on my ear. But I watch it and I'm like going, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Anyway, that's
okay. So would you like to play 5 questions now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First question. Who or which artists influenced your work?
So many, but I really think that the very first ones, so John Romita Jr., Brett Blevins, Barry Windsor Smith, excuse me, obviously like Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri. I'm basically going down a list of like everyone that started doing comics from like X-Men 210 up. Those, man, like if you were on X-Men, you were like the best of the best of the best. Because that's when X-Men was like white hot, and those issues were so good. They were just, I don't think people understand like how big the X-Men were. Like even though like Jim Lee and like Mark especially like left Marvel and started Image, and like they became like their own big huge things. X-Men were still big when they
Hmm.
were doing their stuff. Like it was definitely a cultural phenomenon being an X-Men fan during that time. And so I think a lot of those guys, and now like obviously I've widened my net, you know, Adam Hughes, uh, my friend Pablo, Ali Garza. Um, I got the ink one Ali's pieces the other day. That was pretty dope for Death Watch,
Hmm.
which I forgot I was supposed to be looking at pages. Um, but yeah, so anybody who's good,
Hmm.
I'm gonna admire. I'm gonna admire. You know, Alex Ross. I mean, it just goes on. Andolfo. You know, you name it.
Okay.
I still look at people's stuff. You know, like, don't you get up every? Well, I don't. You know, most artists they'll get up every morning and they're following other comic book artists, and that's their morning ritual. They go look at everybody that's just like dunking on them. You know what I mean? You're just scrolling. You're like, God damn it, I hate these guys. They're so freaking good. Okay, we're gonna draw. You know, it's like this war ritual. You know what I mean? It's like you know. So you know, you get up in the morning, and you know that's how like you get yourself all ready for war. Then you know it's like you look at other people and how good they are until like you just like okay, I gotta at least show up. You know,
Hmm.
and so I still look at it. I still look at everybody's stuff.
Okay. Question number two is in this, they can be writers or artists. Who would be on your personal Mount Rushmore of comic book creators?
Comic book creators of all time.
Yes.
So you got to have Kirby.
Hmm.
You got to have Kirby.
Hmm. But definitely.
Oh, God, four people. Shit. Got to have Kirby. I guess you have to have Stan, right? You can't
Okay.
have Kirby without Stan. Vice versa, you know. And then I'd say you'd have to have like Jim Lee,
Okay.
and you'd either have to have Robert Kirkman or Todd McFarlane,
Okay.
in my opinion. That's my lifetime. I
Yep.
think if you'd ask like someone that's older than me, you know, they pull people from the golden age. You know, Joe Schuster. Well, I guess Kirby was golden age. Super way back Captain America. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Who are yours?
I don't know. I agree with Kirby.
Uh,
Um, I don't know. I think not Harvey Kurtzman. What's his the EIC
yeah.
editor?
Yeah, the guy that the Kirby or the Harvey Awards are named after. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Because you said it, I can't remember his name either. But the second we should, hang up this conversation, it'll pop right into my head. But
yeah.
that's how
Who
our brains
else?
work now.
I just come up with the questions. I don't answer it now. Um,
Well,
oh.
and like if I was just sticking to artists, it would be different.
Hmm.
So artist wise, still Kirby. Kirby's still on
Hmm.
there. And you know what? Jim and Todd are still on there then. And then maybe that last spot, like God, I don't know.
I don't know if I had to throw an anchor, I'd put Joe Sennett on there.
Would you? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I was
Uh,
thinking, yeah. No, yeah. I was thinking like George Perez maybe. Or
okay.
Neil
Oh
Adams.
yeah.
Oh
Oh
gosh. There's so many people though. There's so many people, man. That's such
yeah.
an impossible question. You'd have to have like 50 people on Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? You could
The
just have
whole mountain
four.
range.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because like with presidents, there's only 65 presidents, With comic book people, like there's bajillions of us, We're
Yeah.
like rabbits or something.
All right. Question three. Is there a character that you haven't worked on? I mean, drawn or done and even done a cover for that you would really really like to work on in the future, and it can be from any company, Marvel, DC, Image.
It's fun. I got to do one the other day. I got to do one for Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh,
So
cool.
Usagi's been in my pull list since Critters.
Hmm.
Okay, so like this is before, gosh, was Critters? Oh, I think Critters was Fantagraphics, and then it was like he was at Fantagraphics for a long time. Then he went to like uh, Dark Horse, and then now he's back at Dark Horse. But yeah, so I got to do one for Usagi, and like Stan's like always been an idol of mine. I followed him my whole life. I've come up to him at shows when like it would always blow my mind. Like I'd go to the DC booth and like he'd be signing, and there'd just be a couple of us, and I always just like I'm like going, am I like the only person that knows like how? And here's the thing, I know I'm not the only person because his books win Eisners. Like he's a multiple Eisner award winning artist for Usagi Yojimbo,
Hmm.
and uh, yeah, so I love that. I got to work on that. That was a lot of fun. I'm a huge New Mutants fan. I got to do a Rasputin cover the other day for X-Men, which is like half Colossus, half Magic. That
Hmm.
was pretty dope. Huge Spider-Man fan. I'm getting to do all these Edge of the Spider-Verse covers. Like that's, dude. Any day like you wake up and like you're getting paid to draw Spider-Man, that's a good day. You know what I mean? That's a fun day. Um, so yeah, yeah. So I've got to do a lot of it, but yeah, like, but once again, I know, and I don't want it to sound like a shameless plug, but it really is fun to do your own stuff too,
Yeah.
because you would be shocked. You'd be shocked at how much stuff just gets axed, especially in Harley Quinn. To this day, I don't understand why they don't release a mature Harley Quinn book.
Hmm.
I think that's what they sort of tried to do with Jimmy and Amanda, but I know that they still, because I know Jimmy and Amanda, and I know that they were censored out the wazoo. I just, if they would just let,
The
I
Black
got
Label.
I got Photoshop files of like all the stuff before it hit DC legal, and Jimmy knows it. Like Jimmy knows it. He knows that I got like every Harley page, and there's an alternate, dirtier version of that Harley page. You know,
Hmm.
and DC will not let us touch. I mean, I should auction those off, dude. Like when I die or something, be like, here are the hard drives of the R-rated version of Harley. Come and get it. You know, like a
Yeah.
dinner bell. Ding, 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 no, I don't know why. It would make so much money. It would make so
Yeah.
much money. It'd be so cool because then you get like the real joke. You wouldn't get the watered down, baby down. Like there's a few times our jokes made it through, like they didn't catch it, and you'd have to have a really dirty mind to catch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the most part, we got pretty censored on that book. So, but it's all is like it was fun. We had, like I said, it was. We were trying to make like Caddyshack, Animal House, and they made us let us make like Home Alone. You know what I mean? Like it would have been a lot more fun. Anyway,
All right. Question number five. Hmm. One of these has got to go.
oh no.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or Doctor Who.
Okay, I hate these questions. Because if you love something, I want you to love what you love and forget what I
Hmm.
say. But unabashedly, I would nuke Doctor Who. I I grew up on the super shitty '70s Doctor Who. Like people don't remember this, but there was like a huge gap in like science fiction
Yeah.
between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Like we were starved for science fiction. Like there was like Doctor Who reruns on Channel 10, which was public access television, the
Hmm.
American version of BBC. You had that, you had Battlestar Galactica, and you had V. That's it.
Yes.
That's all you had for like a decade. Okay, almost like it was like 6 or 7 years. That's all the science fiction, and so every nerd on the planet had to watch freaking Doctor Who on BBC, and it was like the stupidest shit. Like it was so bad. It was bad. It was bad. Like and here's how bad it was. Everybody that grew up with me watching that stuff, they feel the exact same way about Doctor Who as I do. Everybody I know that likes Doctor Who is younger than me, and they started and they became a fan with the new stuff, and then they went back and watched it all and they endured it. And I'm like, that's cheating. You know, you got to be like thrown into the middle of that stuff. And I was like, if you're a fan of that Doctor Who, gold star kid right there, man. Whew, because they had to endure a no budget for special effects and probably no budget for acting because that
Yeah.
shit was bad, dude. It was like it was a
So
bunch of British otaku in the 70s, like just doing it for the sake of doing it.
so between so between Star Wars and Star Trek, which one do you kind of gravitate more towards?
I agree wholeheartedly with Alex Ross that Star Trek never solved a plot device by making the protagonist brother and sister. Yeah, and here's the thing, I love them both. Okay,
Hmm.
so this is why I hate these games. You can love everything as much as you want to love something. You know what I'm saying? And nobody has the right to tell you that you don't love something.
Right.
You know what I mean? I love them both, but
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I like to me, Star Trek is almost religion, and Star
Hmm.
Wars is what you watch when Star Trek's not on. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Like I
No,
said,
seriously though, like
I'm
Star Trek is a
workshopping the game. So.
yeah, Star Trek as a philosophy really does work. It's a great like
Hmm.
seriously, the Prime Directive like that's freaking genius. Like we really need to study the government of the Federation and start implementing some of this shit. You know what I mean? Uh,
Hmm.
anyway, no. Star Wars is fun to watch.
Instead of going towards the Emperor direction.
Yeah, right, right. It's a warning. Don't be a dick. And everyone's like, Darth Vader's cool. Okay, whatever. These freaking idiots, man. They're gonna. I tell you.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time. So how about you kind of give one more pitch for the Zoop
Okay,
campaign
man.
and where people can find you?
I was gonna try and find those pages, but I am. Let me see if I can just do one quick. That's the one thing I hate about the iPad is the organization on Procreate. You
Hmm.
do not get to have. Um, so this is almost exactly where. Can I present here just for 1 second? Okay. Let's see. Oh, please let this work. Don't embarrass me right now, iPad. Huh. It's gonna embarrass me. It's not gonna let me cast. Sorry. Okay, so I don't need
That's
to
okay.
full screen. Daggone it, that sucks because I was gonna show you guys some Death Watch stuff, but I guess not. But yeah, so please, if you enjoyed if you enjoyed Harley Quinn, if you've enjoyed any of the work that I've done so far, and you have volumes 1 and 2 and 3, number 4 is more, and I'm under the very biased opinion that I've only gotten better as I've aged. So it's my newest and my best work, and I do want to thank everybody that supported me. Um, it was my, like I said, my lifelong dream as a kid to do it. I feel blessed every day that I do get to do it, and I'm not a religious person, uh, so but I feel extremely lucky, and I'm very grateful, and I realize that I would not be here without people supporting my artwork, even if they don't like me and they just like my artwork. I still thank them
Hmm.
because I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'm bummed that I
All
couldn't
right.
get this to work, but oh well.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this evening to chat with us, and
My
you
pleasure,
know,
man.
you're welcome back anytime to BS with us. And
Do you guys ever do the Discord? With StreamYard, you guys have sort of a cool setup where you can have everybody in the same room at the same time. See, I do Twitch, and
Mhm.
it's just you're lone wolfing it. You
Oh,
know what I mean?
yeah, I've never used Twitch, and we just
Yeah.
kind of use StreamYard. So,
Yeah, I
but
think I think it's a better way to go because you get a community feel. You talk back and forth. If I used to have a hard connection to my computer, I would plug in an HDMI cable into my iPad and then plug it into the back of my computer. I supposedly bought a program that was supposed to do that now, so people could watch it, but for whatever reason, it's not working. But like I said, it's a new setup. It'll take me a little bit to get
yeah,
it figured out. Find out what driver's not working or whatnot. But yeah, Art of Chad Hardin Volume 4. If you missed Death Watch campaign, we have Death Watch books that you can put on as an add-on. Death Watch number 2 will be coming out um, right after Art of Chad Hardin Volume 4, and my next paper films project should be coming out pretty soon too. So yeah,
nice.
I do have a Shopify store now. If you go to hardincomics.com or chadhardinart.com, that will take you to my new Shopify store where you can buy original art, you can buy commissions, you can buy copies of the comics that I have copies of, and I do order like a handful that I get done from Midtown. So if you cannot find it for whatever reason, if you can't find it in your comic shop, come on over to my site, see if I have it. I might charge you an extra $5 for shipping and handling, but you know, um, you should be able to get it the same price you get it off of eBay or anywho. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and yeah, thank you guys for letting me plug it. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
We have a segment every Saturday, the crowdfunding corner, where we do a roundup of what's out there, and Zoop has been a great resource for that. And uh, actually, Jordan is going to be on next week.
Is he see? And I just saw that they're doing. Have you checked out what they're doing? Where they're like, be an investor. Have you checked that out at all? Have you
No, I
looked?
haven't seen that.
So
No.
I think they just did this today. So when I went there today, they had something. I think they're basically saying, hey, like help us reach like the next level. And you can actually,
Hmm.
it sounds to me like they're asking for investors. Excuse me, but you also get, I don't know if it's stock options or what. I'm gonna read it. But
Okay.
I really like Jordan and Eric's setup. Um, I think they're doing a good job. Me speaking as a person who just wants to make this stuff and not deal with the crowdfunding side, I just want to draw. That's all I want to do. I
Hmm.
don't want to. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to draw the funny pictures and send my funny pictures out to people. I really like that they take all that work away, and I don't have to worry about it. I just send them. I send them the PDF, and they do everything else. So I hope that more comic people get on their site and use it and support the creators on it for sure. Because and don't get me wrong, I don't have any problems going back to work for Marvel and DC, but there's so much good stuff coming out creator wise now. I I mean, Scott Snyder is doing creator owned. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody's doing creator owned, man. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah, follow the creators, not the publishers.
And speaking of creators, for people who are watching the show, come back tomorrow night because David Pepos will be on the show talking Space Ghost.
Ooh, Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yep.
Nice.
So again, thank you for the time this evening, and you know, go check out the Zoop page, and you know, make sure you support your local comic store and all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
All right.